Alors, mesdames et messieurs, je vous laisse avec une transmission en direct.
Mr. Philip Lazzarini, the Commissioner General of the UNRWA. Ladies and gentlemen, at the outset, I'd like to extend my wholeheartedly thanks to the Commissioner General of UNRWA, Mr. Philip Lazzarini, for all his strenuous and continuous efforts to support our Palestinian brothers inside and outside the occupied Palestinian territories, particularly under the very complicated situation, and it's very difficult to express the situation in any words, particularly in Gaza. It is a full-fledged famine, man-made hunger, and made by the Israeli occupation. I'd like to extend my appreciation and thanks to everybody working in the area of relief aid under the UNRWA. They are working in the field with stamina, dedication, and professionalism to do their job in providing the fundamental services and aid to the Palestinian brotherly people, and to continue with their tasks in a humane way despite all the unjustified pressures and obstacles, and it reaches the extent of killings by the Israeli occupation forces. I'd like to extend my thanks and appreciation to the volunteers, the Egyptian volunteers under the Egyptian Red Crescent. There are more than 35,000 young people from the great people of Egypt, and they're doing a noble job in coordinating humanitarian relief aid to Gaza Strip. The UNRWA is not only a relief agency, but it is a real witness that testifies to the global community responsibility and mission towards the vital cause of the Palestinian issue. And I'd like to say that any efforts to touch the mandate of UNRWA provided according to the UN resolutions under any kind of pretext or elusive justification will deepen the suffering of the Palestinian people and destabilize the region. The task of the UNRWA cannot be restricted, and no replacement for it by any other agency. The recent experiences had proven that trying to have replacements and other mechanisms had failed in providing the minimum of humanitarian response to the needs of the Palestinian people in Gaza Strip. Those alternatives didn't have legitimacy, efficiency, or popular acceptance, and also it doesn't have the international legitimacy in comparison to the UNRWA, according to the UN mandate. Ladies and gentlemen, in Egypt, we're standing fast in supporting UNRWA against the challenges it faces in a bid to destroy it and to destroy the right of repatriation, which is a right for all the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. We're also standing fast besides the UNRWA in facing the financial challenges and crises that it faces. because some parties are trying to pressure that and to restrict the role of UNRWA. We're exerting strenuous efforts with all the donors to continue providing the full-fledged support to the UNRWA, because there is no replacement or alternative to the UNRWA. And the donors and the international community are responsible for this unaccepted and dangerous refrain from supporting the UNRWA, and we refuse the double standards in dealing with humanitarian issues, because this leads to shrinking confidence in the principles of international justice. The international responsibilities towards the UNRWA is not a favor, but it is an ethical and international duty, and it doesn't accept any kind of tight personal accounts. Egypt had a pivotal role in dealing with the developments in the occupied Palestinian territories through the strenuous and honest efforts it exerts with Qatar and the United States of America to have an immediate ceasefire. But the continuous Israeli intransigence imposing obstructive conditions is a real obstacle against any tangible development towards a calming down of the situation. It also aggravates the humanitarian situation. That's what I'd like to emphasize to the international community, that we need that the public interest should supersede the personal interest. I re-emphasize that Egypt continues its efforts to facilitate the access of humanitarian aid to Gaza, and it maintains and it still opens Rafah crossing open, and I repeat that 24/7. Although it has been closed from the Israeli side by the Israeli occupied forces on the other side. Under this dire situation, and despite the Israeli restrictions, Egypt access 70% of the humanitarian aid into Gaza, and this is an evidence on our strong commitment to support the Palestinian people. There are more than 6,000 trucks on the Egyptian side of the crossing.
كما ذكرت فإن سلطات الاحتلال
But unfortunately, the Israeli forces obstruct the access of those trucks. And the international community can see that, and they don't do anything. In light of all this, we'd like to emphasize the legal, full-fledged legal responsibility of the Israeli occupied forces to have immediate access to the relief aid from all sorts of crossings, particularly the 5 crossings that tie them to Gaza Strip without any kind of obstacles, because Gaza Strip needs on a daily basis around 700 trucks of humanitarian and medical aid to satisfy the minimum needs and basic needs of people there. As the UN agency said, there is a famine in Gaza Strip, and it is aggravating on a daily basis. It is man-made hunger. It is made by the Israeli forces, and this is an ethical and legal responsibility to stop this hunger by removing all sorts of restrictions against the access of these relief aid. We fully refuse the expansive policies by Israel, including the military continuous and repetitive attacks against Strip, and using hunger as a political tool to achieve their announced purposes. And this is a stark violation to the international law and the legitimate resolutions, and it restricts the calming down of the situation, and it escalates tension in the region. We also emphasize the great importance of the immediate ceasefire, and there is a deal that depends on the U.S. Envoy proposal, Steve Witkoff, and this deal should be accepted by the Israeli side to put an end to the daily killings they commit and the hunger they committed there, and this leads to the end of war and the attacks, and put an end to all that, and to release all the hostages. With Mr. Lazzarini, we talked about an international conference. Cairo intends to host it in coordination with the State of Palestine and the United Nations and international partners, after announcing the ceasefire, to work on providing the full-fledged support to execute the Arab Islamic proposal for early recovery and reconstruction in Gaza. We underscore that the UNRWA should have a pivotal and central role in this conference, plus all the other international and UN agencies to support the execution of the activities and programs required by the Palestinians in light of executing the Arab Islamic project and the executive programs prepared by the Palestinian government through early recovery and reconstruction phases. In conclusion, Egypt underscores that the only way to establish international peace and security is to establish an independent Palestinian state according to 4th of June 1967 borders with eastern of Jerusalem, its capital, and the full refusal, and we reiterate that several times, and the President said that we fully refuse any injustice and practices against the Palestinian people, and we don't accept any kind of deportation, because Egypt is keen on keeping the Palestinian cause and not liquefying it. We emphasize, we fully welcome the idea that many countries in the world, a large number of many countries intend to announce that they recognize the Palestinian state in New York on the margins and sidelines of the UN General Assembly. This is not a symbolic step, but it is a landmark and a turning point in establishing the legitimate rights of the Palestinians, on top of them self-determination. And we call on the other countries in the world, the respected and dignified countries, to follow suit and to recognize the Palestinian state, to give some hope and support to the Palestinian steadfast people who are fighting in their country in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, that the international community are not turning their back to this great people as they did in the past 23 months under the killings, hunger, systemized famine against the Palestinian people. We emphasize that the Palestinian cause is the current crux of conflict in the region. No security and peace without giving the Palestinian people their rights, and this will be on top of the agenda of the Palestinian foreign policy under the instructions of President Sisi. It is a core issue related to the Egyptian fundamentals, and they never change under any conditions, and it will never be shaken under any kind of reasons. Thank you very much. And I call my dear brother, Mr. Lazzarini, to take the floor. Please, sir.
Thank you.
شكرا جزيلا معالي وزير الخارجية المصري دكتور بدر عبد العاطي. شكرا جزيلا على دعمك الشخصي للأونروا وكالة الغوث. نشكر حكومة مصر أيضا. لقد وصلت إلى مصر منذ يومين لحضور اجتماع جامعة الدول العربية.
Today to have a consultation with the Minister of Foreign Affairs here in Egypt. We discussed a lot about the situation in Gaza. I have to say we are becoming more and more speechless. We have almost exhausted all our possible vocabulary to try to describe the depths of the suffering of the people in Gaza. And as mentioned in the minister's intervention, now there is a new name, a new plague, which is labeling Gaza, which is famine. And famine, despite weeks and months of warnings, which at the end have fallen into deaf ears. So now we have a population which not only can be killed any time because of the ongoing military operation, because of the bombardment, but also because they are desperately seeking for food, or they are just dying silently because hunger has hit them. What does it mean? And I said many times now, what's unfolding under our watch in Gaza is somehow, it's possible because of a collective lack of proper compassion. And it's also possible because impunity is prevailing. Despite all the possible red line having been crossed, impunity is still prevailing. There is absolutely no consequences for the time being for any of the atrocities which have been committed so far. Now you have seen that even today the caregiver, the humanitarian workers have paid a very high price. Only in my organization, 360 personnel have been killed since the beginning of the war. They have paid the ultimate price. But the others are sharing the same fate than anyone else in Gaza, to the extent that even the caregiver are hungry, that even the caregiver can faint because of hunger. And when we reach such a situation, it also means that the entire humanitarian response is collapsing. And this is something we should not let happen. This situation can be reversed. As the minister said, it's a man-made famine. It's not a famine due to, a war, in a war-torn country where everything collapsed and you have the climate change. Not at all. It is completely deliberate and it is constructed. We know how to respond to this situation. We have shown during the ceasefire, while before the ceasefire, food was also spreading and the hunger was deepening, that we could reverse the trend of the famine. At that time, humanitarian organizations were allowed to bring in, to flood Gaza with life-saving goods, and we could reverse the trend of a deepening hunger. Today, an agency like UNRWA has food and critical items in Egypt and in Jordan. Basically, we have the equivalent to cover all the need of the population for the next coming 3 months. Solution is here. Open the passage and lift the restriction on humanitarian organization. I have also to say, and I want to pay tribute because I'm here with journalists, that journalists have also paid a heavy price in Gaza. And more than 200, 250, depending on how it has been recorded, but just to say that your voice has been absolutely essential to tell the world what is going on. At least thanks to our heroic colleagues who were in Gaza, we will never be in a situation to say we did not know. Yes, we knew everything. There is absolutely no conflict which is so well documented than the one in Gaza. Now, maybe just a word about where the agencies stand, because you heard me many times talking about the financial situation. The financial situation is of great concern. I have to say, is desperate, that despite the fact that the agency had to take important austerity measures impacting some of our program, I still do not know if we will have the necessary resource to continue to properly operate until the end of the year. That's how bad the situation is. And when I went to the Arab League, I also told the Minister of the region that it is important that the political support of the region being expressed to the agency be also translated into matching resources. For the time being, the resource we have received does not translate this strong solidarity. Resources from the region have significantly dropped between 24 and 25 and represent, for the time being, only 3% of all the income of the agency. I am convinced that we can do much, much better, and I hope that next time I meet you, I can also share with you some good news. Finally, Minister, we discussed a lot about the future of the agency. You have laid out, indeed, also the future rehabilitation reconstruction conference on Gaza once a ceasefire is reached. We all hope the ceasefire is reached the soonest, because right now there is a massive, large-scale military operation going on in Gaza, and a ceasefire would certainly stop this new catastrophe falling on the Gazan. And just to let you know also that this year will be the year of the renewal of the UNRWA mandate, and it will be an occasion again for the international community and the member states to show their strong support to the Palestinians and to tell them that we are here and that your plight matters. Thank you, Minister.
We'll open the floor for questions. Basant Mustafa from MENA. My question is to Dr. Abdelatty. With the escalation of attacks against Gaza and these really announcements about the deportation, what are the priorities in Egypt and the Arab and Islamic group to be proposed during New York meeting with regards to Gaza? And do you have any expectations for any practical steps to stop these offensive against the people in Gaza? The first priority is the ceasefire and to stop these really offensive. No other steps can be maintained without the ceasefire. We can't talk about improving the humanitarian living standards without a ceasefire. We can't talk about releasing any political process without a ceasefire. We can't release all the hostages without a ceasefire. We can't talk about early recovery and reconstruction without a ceasefire. This is the utmost priority, which is to work on reaching a deal based on the US Envoy Witkoff proposal or deal to have a temporary 60-day period for a ceasefire, and during this period a group of hostages would be released, and also to release the dead bodies, and this period would be a basis to reach a full-fledged and final deal to stop all the military operations and Israeli offensive. And after that, we can talk about the early recovery and reconstruction and to deal with the political horizon leading to the embodiment of a Palestinian state. We have a full-fledged plan. It is not an Egyptian plan now. It is an Arab Islamic plan proposed by the international, supported by the international community. It's based on 3 pivots. The first pivot, it's related to the security arrangements. Another pivot is related to governance and the administration of the Gaza Strip. And the third point is the early recovery and reconstruction. This vision has been agreed upon by the international community, and if there's the political will by the Israeli side, the moment they approve the Witkoff proposal, we're going to start executing this plan. The security arrangements are clear for us. The core and crux of it is the Palestinian police, empowering them and deploying them. And we don't mind that we said several times that international forces would be deployed there if there is a request by the Palestinian side to do that. And the job would be to rehabilitate the Palestinian Authority, to establish the state, and to protect the Palestinian people, and to maintain security for all the parties in the region. When we talk about governance, there is an administrative committee comprising 15 technocrats from the Gaza Strip to administer the Strip for 6 months. And then they hand over the authority to the Palestinian Authority to manage the situation in preparation for the political horizon to establish the state. One more question. Sharif Abdelhamid from Gumhuriya newspaper. My question is to Mr. Lazzarini. How do you see the Egyptian efforts towards the access of maintained aid into Gaza? On the other hand, Israelis are using hunger as a weapon against the Palestinians, and the international community are silent against that.
Thank you. I don't think the international community is silent. And there is a lot of expression of outrage, condemnation. But what's shocking is more the inaction, that the unbearable, the situation we see we have committed years and decades ago would never happen again, is happening again under our watch. And the lack of action is definitely shocking. Now, we have to deal with this reality. I think it's obscene when people start to question if people are really hungry or not. We have the world experts on nutrition, which clearly came to the conclusion that famine is now a reality, and starvation and hunger is hitting the rest of the population. So there have been more humanitarian aid coming in, but it's far from being enough. There have been concerted effort. Egypt has been very active also. It was a humanitarian hub here, and we have the Red Crescent also very active. But this is not enough. We are far too constrained. We are far too constrained to reach the people where they are. At the time of the ceasefire, we had up to 400 different distribution centers. We could reach out the people where they were. We could reach out the most vulnerable. That's not the case anymore. The model which has been put in place, the official one at least, forces people to walk miles and miles and miles and miles under the heat of the summer. Only the strongest can do this. There is absolutely no way that anyone else can do it. So we know how to respond. We have the expertise, we have the resource, we have the people. Everything is waiting. I mean, warehouses are full. This makes it even more obscene. And it is deeply, deeply, deeply frustrating that we haven't yet found the way to influence political decision to reverse hunger and to reverse the famine. Now, as far as crossing are concerned, during the ceasefire, we were using Rafah. Rafah was an entry point. Rafah was an entry point for the people in the south. It's not anymore. We cannot cross anymore. But even when we bring in food in Gaza, we cannot really reach the people anymore. For that, we need a ceasefire. For that, we need a political will to allow the humanitarian to do their work properly. The insanity is that this famine, this one, is not the most complex one. It is just artificial, fabricated. It's not artificial because it's a reality for the people. It's fabricated. We can undo it. To undo it is a will, nothing else.
Yeah, thank you so much. And as you know, it's all about the other side of the border. Of course, the Palestinian terminal and the Israeli obstruction, the demolition of the Palestinian terminal, and the blocking by the Israelis, who are not allowing, of course, the flow of all trucks to enter into Gaza via Rafah, and now only it's Kerem Shalom or Karam Abu Salem, only few, and as you correctly mentioned, it's an artificial famine created by the Israelis.
سؤال إضافي أستاذ سار شلقاني دستور.
سؤالي لمعالي وزير الخارجية بدر عبد العاطي إلى الآن لم
Abdelatty. Until now, Israel did not respond to the proposal of Witkoff with regards to the ceasefire, although the Palestinian factions had approved that 2 weeks ago. And the Israeli announcement is trying to say that the deportation is a choice and under the umbrella of human rights. How does Egypt see that? Are there any steps taken in coordination with the US administration and Qatar in this regard? Certainly, the Egyptian-Qatari efforts are continuous in coordination with the United States of America. I had a long conversation last evening after I came from Cyprus with Mr. Witkoff. We talked about the American proposal. It is the proposed paper now, and it was approved by Hamas and the Palestinian factions. We need to intensify our efforts to implement this proposal as quickly as possible. And this requires a pressure on the Israeli side because of their intransigence and refusal to this proposal. And they refused this deal. We said before, this deal is not temporary. It's going to lead us certainly to the end of war or offensive. And this is what's proposed or tabled for discussion now. As for any other lies promulgated, we had responded to them several times, time and again, and we said that this deportation is a red line for Egypt and Jordan and for the Arab countries. This is not going to be accepted or allowed under any kind of conditions or under any name. As Mr. Lazzarini said, there is a man-made hunger by the occupied forces, a man-made hunger to push and force people to leave their land. This is nonsense. To say this is a voluntary deportation, no. The Palestinian people are sticking to the land and they're clinging to it, and they don't want to leave the land. Why should they leave their land? This is their land. This is a historical right to them. This is a legal right. This is a humane and ethical right. It is a moral right. They cannot be forced to leave their country by making life impossible in the Gaza Strip and then say this is a voluntary deportation. This is not right. Absolutely. Samar al-Gamal, Ahram Ibdo. Mr. Lazarine,
the UN Secretary General
الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة
demanded an strategic assessment of the UNRWA mandate. Can you hear me okay?
Take it off. Take it.
So Antonio Guterres has demanded a strategic assessment of the UNRWA mandate, how this will have an impact on the ground, either in Gaza, West Bank, or Jerusalem, and why, or have you, I mean the UN system and the UNRWA, taken any legal action against, I mean, if not the killing of the Palestinians and the crimes against the Palestinians, at least against the physical attacks against UNRWA. And the second question is للوزير مع الوزير بدر عبد العاطي. حضرتك اتكلمت على الأكاذيب الإسرائيلية لكن نتنياهو تحدث امبارح
accused the Egyptian foreign ministry, and he said that they restrict the exit of the Palestinians, and they retracted several times. They accused Egypt of restricting that. There is a threat of stopping the gas deal and some of the violations of the peace agreement. How would you describe this attack against Egypt, either official announcements or in the media?
The strategic assessment has been commissioned by Secretary General Guterres, where basically the question was, how can we ensure, first, acknowledge the extraordinary adverse environment UNRWA is operating in, not just adverse because of the financial situation, but also because on how we are constrained to operate in Gaza and in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, and also because of the number of political pressure attack the agency is under. So it is important that we ask the question about the member states, how do you want in the future help to protect the mandate of the agency and ensure that we remain as international community committed to the right of the Palestinian refugees. So basically this strategic assessment has to be seen as a tool to trigger a discussion about what needs to be undertaken to shield the mandate, to shield the role of the UN. It goes from a statu quo, and I keep saying the statu quo for this agency is not tenable anymore. Sooner or later we might fall from the edge of the cliff because our resources do not match the expectation, the task and the mandate being conferred to the agency. We provide public-like services, but we do not have the fiscal tools public institutions have. We only depend on voluntary contribution of the same member states conferring us the mandate. Secondly, in the strategic assessment, there is also an option saying that maybe UNRWA should be be considered by the international community as an extraordinary asset to succeed in any agreed future political pathway and solution. For example, we are primarily an agency focusing on human development, like education, primary health, social services. We certainly have a role to play in the future to build the capacity of future Palestinian institutions within a Palestinian state. So the strategic assessment primarily needs to be seen as a tool, a contribution to a discussion we believe is important that the member states have. This year will be a year of mandate renewal. I really hope that the mandate will be renewed as well as it has been in the past, that we show the strong support, I wouldn't say unanimity, but quasi-unanimity of the international community, and it is important that we show that the plight of the Palestinian and Palestinian refugees continue to matter to the international community. On the second question, you heard me many times calling for independent investigation. For the time being, Gaza is still a war zone. We have about 90% of our premises which have been damaged or completely destroyed. I truly believe that in due time we will need to have a board of inquiry to start with, because there should also be accountability for the destruction, not only of assets, but also the killing of United Nations personnel. Thank you.
يعني أقوله هو
The Egyptian established a position that Rafah crossing is for humanitarian and medical aid and Palestinian people, and it will never be a crossing to deport the Palestinians from their homeland. This position will not change. It is fixed. It is a position of international legitimacy. It supports the rights and justice, as we reiterated. There are 5 crossings ties the occupied territories to Gaza. If they want to challenge the international community and to deport the Palestinians, they have those crossings that tie them to Gaza, and they can shoulder this ethical and legal responsibility. But as we said, Rafah crossing will never be a crossing to deport the Palestinians from their homeland. Thank you very much.
القوات الإسرائيلية تواصل